Hi everyone, my name is Stephanie Bearman. I'm a registered dietitian and I'm the visiting dietitian for the Athabasca Health Authority. Typically, I had been traveling up to the Basin for 1 week a month to offer my services through one-on-one counseling, but since the virus has happened, I've been offering my services remotely over the phone. So I wanted to come on here today to talk to you about a tool that I use in the majority of my counseling sessions. This is the Canada Food Guide. I think the food guide is a really good tool for teaching us about different foods we should include when we're building meals and snacks, and also to talk about how different foods react in our body. So whether you have diabetes, high cholesterol, or you're just looking to generally eat healthy, I think this tool is applicable for everyone. So when we first look at this plate, we see there's three different groups. We have our fruits and vegetables, our whole grains and starches, and our protein foods. And I should mention that whether you're eating these really healthy foods that are pictured here, or if you're eating less healthy foods like pop, cake, chips, stuff like that, all the foods we eat break down into sugar, otherwise known as glucose, in our body. So if you've ever heard the term blood sugar before, that's where this is coming from. So when we eat foods, that food starts to break down into sugar. That sugar hangs out in our bloodstream, and in order for that sugar to get used by our body for its functions, that sugar needs to move from our blood into our muscle cells and our brain cells. So that sugar is vital in our body's processes. So it's not a bad thing to have sugar in your blood. It's essential for your body to run. But what we're going to talk about is how different foods break down at different rates into sugar. So if we're looking to eat healthier, we want to choose foods that break down into sugar slower, as that'll give us energy for a more sustained period of time, versus foods that contain a lot of sugar, like pop, that'll break down into sugar really fast. Those foods will give us a quick burst of sugar, but after we burn that sugar away, we're left feeling tired and hungry again. So we want to talk about how to eat healthier foods that break down into sugar slower so that we have energy for a longer period of time. So the first group we're going to talk about is our whole grains and starches. So these foods break down into sugar quickly, and also they give us the majority of the blood sugar that our body needs to run. So the reason that we want to choose whole grains or the brown versions of these foods is because they break down into sugar slower than the white or refined versions. And the reason for that is the refined versions of these whole grains, so we have bread, pasta, rice, wild rice, other grains. The reasons that the white versions of these foods turn into sugar more quickly is because they have the bran or the fiber removed. And it's that bran and that fiber that actually slows the rise in our blood sugar. So without that, these foods turn to sugar quite quickly. So if you have diabetes, you might have heard that you can't have these foods, and I'm here to tell you that that's not true. You still can. We just want to be choosing the brown or the unrefined high fiber whole grains, as they'll turn to sugar slower than those refined ones. So it's still important to include these foods at all our meals. They can represent about a quarter of our plate or the size of our fist. They give us the majority of the energy that our bodies and our brains need to function, but we want to choose the brown versions that'll turn to sugar slower than the white equivalents will. So the second group we're going to talk about is our protein foods. You can see here we get protein from a variety of food sources, including both animal-based proteins and plant-based proteins. Our animal-based proteins include our meat, whether that's wild meat, chicken, fish, pork, eggs, any type of protein that comes from an animal. And our plant-based proteins are things like beans, peas, and lentils, or nuts and seeds. We also get protein from our dairy foods like Greek yogurt, some protein in milk, and cheese. So proteins actually have kind of an opposite effect that our whole grains have. So we said our whole grains provide us with the fuel and the energy that our bodies need to run. They raise our blood sugar. And what our proteins do is they kind of counteract this. So our proteins come in and they help stabilize our blood sugar, along with offering the building blocks that our muscles need to grow, our hormones need to synthesize. Our proteins are really there to offer the building blocks for our bodies to continue growing, and they're also there to keep us full and stabilize our blood sugar. So whenever you're having some of these starchy foods, you always want to balance it with this protein food to make sure that you're keeping your blood sugar stable. And I also should mention that the protein foods, especially the animal-based proteins, can have quite a lot of fat. So in order to have an appropriate size portion, we want to have our meats represent about a quarter of our plate. Or another way of remembering it is that a portion of meat is the size of your palm without your fingers. So the thickness of your palm with your thumb removed, your fingers removed, that's an appropriate size meat portion for you. So the last group of foods on our plate, they're making up the majority of our plate, is our fruits and vegetables. So this is the one that I know if you're living up in the Athabasca Basin, you're going to have trouble accessing these fruits and vegetables in a high enough quantity for it to represent half your plate. So I know that's not necessarily achievable for you, and that's okay, but I still want to talk about why it's important to try and include these foods as much as we can. So our fruits and vegetables, they offer us a variety of different things. You can see there's so many different colors, and those different colors are giving us a variety of vitamins and minerals that our bodies need to stay healthy. Along with those vitamins and minerals, we're also getting a lot of water or fluid from these foods, which keeps us full. Along with fiber, like we mentioned previously, helps to stabilize our blood sugar. And this fiber and the bulk that we get from these foods keeps us full, and it also keeps us regular, which is really good for our gut health. And I should say, if you can't access these foods in their fresh form, it's okay to purchase frozen or canned produce. If you're purchasing canned, you just want to give it a rinse under water to get rid of some of that excess salt. And if you're purchasing canned fruit, just purchase it in water instead of syrup so that we don't have excess sugar in there. And that's another thing that's important to remember, is that if we can, we want to choose vegetables more often than fruits. And that's because fruits do contain quite a lot of natural sugar, which is good for us. But if we have diabetes, or if we're eating just a lot of fruit, that will have an effect on our blood sugar. So we want to pair our fruit with something like a protein food to help balance it out. Or if you're having your meal, you want to choose mostly vegetables, as they contain a lot more fiber than sugar, so they're going to counteract your whole grains and lower your blood sugar levels. So as a recap of all the things we just talked about, when we look at this plate, or when we're creating our own meals and snacks, as often as we can, we want to make sure we're including something from each of these different groups. So to recap, our whole grains, our brown rice, brown bread, these are going to give us the energy that our bodies and our brain needs to function, do the stuff it needs to do. We balance that by including protein so that our body gets the building blocks it needs to create muscles and proteins. And we also know that these proteins help to stabilize the rise in our blood sugar we will have when we eat these whole grain foods. And then, if we can, we balance it all out with a portion of fruits and vegetables, as these fruits and vegetables give us micronutrients, they give us fluid, they give us fiber to keep us regular, and that fiber, like we said, also keeps us full and lowers our blood sugar. That fiber, if you have high cholesterol, that fiber also goes in there and scrapes away some of that bad cholesterol, so it's really good for combating both diabetes and high cholesterol if that's something that's applicable for you. The last thing we see on this plate here is water. So our bodies are made up of majority of water, and when you're thirsty, I want you to, as often as you can, try and reach for water over things like juice, pop, or milk, or energy drinks. So all those other drinks that I just mentioned all contain energy and sugar, which when we're just trying to quench our thirst, we don't necessarily need. So even something like a juice or a regular pop is going to raise your blood sugar quite a bit. So if we're just quenching our thirst, we want to choose water, as we know it's really hydrating and we're not getting any excess sugar and calories. So to sum it all up, when you're creating a meal, try and include something from each of these three groups. That way you'll know you're getting the nutrition you need, you know your meal is balanced, and you know that you're eating in a way that's going to give you a nice even curve in your blood sugar instead of a big spike. When you're creating your snacks, if you can't always get one of all three of these groups, then always try and choose a protein food and pair it with one of these foods that increase your blood sugar. That could be a fruit or a vegetable and a whole grain. Always try and pair these groups with a protein food at your snack, and then you'll know that all your meals are balanced. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video today. I hope it was helpful for you. If you have any further questions, you can leave it in the comments or send us a message. If you'd like to set up an appointment with me, my name is Stephanie Bearman. My email is sbearman@athabascahealth.ca, or if you're interested in an appointment, you can let your local nurse know and she can refer you. So thanks so much for watching. I hope I can come back up and visit you guys in person soon, and just stay safe during this time. Thanks.